Hello, beautiful souls. This is Elena Fouché. I was standing here eating a pear, and instead of eating mindfully, which is something I've been working on doing a lot more lately, um, I was thinking, I was imagining that it was a good pear, by the way, very nice. I was thinking that, imagining being interviewed by someone who is totally mind based and has never experienced mindfulness or presence, has basically has never experienced themselves as other than being in their mental state. Um, and if they asked me, what is presence or mindfulness, um, what would I say, and how would I explain it? And um, the idea that came across was so beautiful to me that I finished my pear, and I'm making this video. I haven't made videos in quite a while, so I hope I can get this idea across to you. It's basically how to explain mentally from inside the mind what we're talking about when we're talking about um, being aware of ourselves and knowing ourselves in a bigger way, which is a really complicated thing to do. And I've been thinking about how to explain something that is bigger than the mind to the mind for a long time. So, anyway, this just descended upon me. Thank you, whoever gave me this idea. So, Elena, what is presence? What is awareness? And my immediate thought is to drop into awareness and to say, well, it's this. And of course, what is this? Because you can't see it or feel it or touch it or taste it or hear it. And so you want me to explain to you what this is. And this poses a very interesting problem because this question is being asked from inside of the box of the mind, right? It's from inside of something that is only able to see itself. And as soon as someone says, okay, look outside of yourself, it sounds crazy. It sounds nuts. At best, it just sounds like the person is having some experience that you're not having. At worst, it sounds like a lie or just some totally ridiculous thing. Um, and yet, for those of us where this is a very real experience, how do we share that and explain that to someone who is interested in having this experience, is interested in knowing themselves in this way, and yet is in here, is inside of the mind? So, one way to think about this is it's a little bit like saying to someone, okay, go outside of yourself, right? Go outside of everything you know. It's a little bit, the mind could think it's a little bit like saying to a little kid, who's this tall, okay, be an adult now. Be an adult. Well, the mind understands time. It understands that it's not possible to go from being this tall to this tall in an instant. It's also not possible to gain all the experience and knowledge that an adult has when we've only experienced life as a child. It seems crazy. It seems like you're telling someone to do the impossible. Of course, that seems crazy. It is crazy. Like, when you think about it like that, it's completely nuts. It makes no sense. Be an adult. Be something you're not. Be something impossible. Another way to think about it is to think about, okay, go outside of the universe. Go outside of the known universe. Be outside of the known universe. Okay, now it sounds really crazy. At least going from a child to adult, we know that's possible. But if someone says to you, go outside of the known universe, Okay, now it starts to sound esoteric, woo woo, totally crazy. Like, what? So, this is nuts. Okay, so another way to think about this, and I've used this analogy quite a few times, is what if I tell you that you are focus. You are not your mind. You're not this reality. You're actually something that is focusing on this reality. And all you need to do is realize that and then stop doing it and let yourself unfocus on this and either focus on something else or be panoramically focused and, you know, notice your whole self or other parts of yourself, however you want to do it. But of course, how do you do that? Elena, how do you do that? And again, this sounds crazy. I know. So part of the reason it sounds crazy is because, again, we're talking from inside of the mind. And you're wanting me to, or the questioner, the questioning mind is wanting an explanation of something that is fundamentally outside of itself and unknowable by itself. And that's why it sounds nuts. Because we're asking the mind to know something that the mind cannot know. We're asking the mind to know what is outside of itself. And it's not just like turning and looking somewhere else, because that's still inside the mind. It's actually, no, don't even use the mind at all. Okay, so the analogy that I often use is the movie theater. So here's one way for us to understand from inside the mind what's happening. So imagine that you are in a movie theater, in a cinema, watching a film, and let's say the film is you're on Mars, the characters on Mars, they're fighting for their life, they're fighting monsters, they're trying to grow food, they're doing all this stuff, and it's such a great film. You are so into it that it's even though you're physically sitting in a movie theater, you are on Mars. It is like you are on Mars. You are right with the person throwing punches, shooting your laser gun, digging potatoes. You're there. You're sweating. When the monster throws a punch, you duck, right? You're totally there. Okay? So, this is what being in the mind is like, right? You're totally focused on the film. Now, as soon as I say, hey, notice that you're in a film, or that you're watching a film, that you're focused on the film, notice that and realize that you actually are sitting in a movie seat, in a theater seat. That it's not actually that you're on Mars, it's that you are focusing on being in Mars, right? So, you know, as soon as you realize that, okay, I am focusing on this film, on this reality that I'm creating or someone created for me, and here I am enjoying it and totally into it, so much so that I have completely forgotten that this is a film, it's a movie, it's a created thing, and actually I am sitting here in a seat. Oh, okay. So this is a lot like what's happening. And, as soon as someone says, hey, you know, you're not actually in this movie. Actually, you're sitting back here in this seat, watching this movie, focusing on this movie. It's jarring, right? At first, you're like, what? No, no, Mars, ooh. Because you've forgotten everything. You're not thinking about your day-to-day life. You're not thinking about your job, your kids, your dog, your boyfriend, your girlfriend, your whatever, your list of shopping, I don't know what. You are on Mars. You know, if someone walked in to that film screen, let's say from Universal Pictures, and said, hey, by the way, you're almost out of popcorn. And do you want another drink? That would seem really weird, right? I mean, here you are in the film, you're like fighting monsters, digging potatoes, doing all this stuff, and then totally out of character, someone walks into the movie in their three-piece business suit, and they're like, hey, want some popcorn? It's totally jarring. It's like, what? I No, I want to be on Mars. Get out of my get out of here. Right? And it's true. No one does that. I can only think of one movie ever where people broke the scene like that, and it was on purpose to be funny in the movie. It's called oh anyway, doesn't matter. The point is, we don't do that in films because it's incongruous, it's jarring, it's not very fun for like, getting lost in the movie, right? It totally breaks our the fantasy and the focus and um, it's not very nice. It doesn't help us continue the movie. And so that's largely what's happening. We are focused on something, right? So much so that we have forgotten that we're sitting in a movie seat. And it's a little bit jarring when someone like me comes up and says, hey, by the way, do you know that actually you're sitting in a movie seat? you're not you're not actually on Mars. What? What? That's crazy. Totally crazy. At best, um, you realize that, I'm having an experience that you're not having. At worst, you think I'm lying to you because, your whole thing is on Mars. Okay, do you see where I'm going with this? The point is, we get so focused on what's going on our mental created reality. And I'm not saying your reality is false or just a mental creation. Reality is much bigger than your mental creation, actually. And your mind like adds to what's happening. That's a whole nother video or whatever. That's a whole nother issue. The point is, you are so focused on your mind and your thoughts and what's happening on the film of your mind that you have forgotten that actually you are not the film, you're not the mental things, you're not your thoughts, you're not your emotions. You are what is focusing on the thoughts and the emotions. And, well, ta-da. It's as simple and as complicated as that. It's as simple as that because it is exactly the same as being in a theater, watching the film and just being like, "Oh yeah, right. I'm sitting here in a movie theater. Okay. Ooh, I gotta pee and I need some more popcorn. Okay." Right? It's as simple as that. And it's as complicated as you being willing to make that shift. And how do you do that when you are so focused on the film that you think this is reality? You've forgotten everything else, right? And anyone that walks on the scene and says, hey, you are something else. You don't have to live in this. You can change, right? As soon as someone walks on the scene and says that, they sound crazy. It's jarring. It's not your experience from in here, and you have forgotten the rest of your experience. So the last things I want to say about that are when you make that realization, and it's super easy to make because it's just like being in the movie theater, you already are the thing watching your mind. So getting out of this box is not that complicated. It's just you need to do it. There's a lot of different ways to do it. But if you want out of this, just get out. It's not, it's, you're already sitting in the seat. It's not esoteric. It's not something you need to learn. It's not something, a muscle you need to build. It's not uh, a new part of you need to connect with. Um, it's you. You already are that. So it's not big and mystical and crazy. It's very simple. Of course, what you can do when you stop focusing on this and you allow yourself to focus on much bigger parts of you or the whole of you, however you want to think about that, then it can get quite esoteric. Or not, you know? There's lots of famous stories about janitors and um, street sweepers and, very normal people living very normal lives. So it doesn't. I think the thing that's confusing is just that when you're in here, you're kind of stuck. You're stuck because it's a habit, though. You're not stuck for any other reason. Because all you have to do is look away. And as soon as you start to look away, you'll be like, whoa, yep, there's more here than just this. The issue, of course, is that you're so used to looking here. You've been doing that for so long that as you look away, you look back immediately. And so that's the practice. That becomes the practice, and that's why people practice, right? They practice looking away because they know they're going to come back a lot, and they stay here. So they every day they make a point of looking somewhere else, focusing somewhere else, or unfocusing, right? Whatever works for you, until you get to that point where this is your habit. And if you want to come back here, you can. But this is not what you're doing all the time. Okay. That was really long. And if that makes sense to you, if that helps you, good. Makes me want to cry. I felt so stuck when I was here. Oof. It's a difficult place to be. Partly it's difficult because we're not taking care of the bigger parts of ourselves, right? We're just taking all of this and focusing it down into something really small. It takes a lot of energy to do that, and we neglect the rest of us. And maybe you need to go to the bathroom. Maybe you need more popcorn. Maybe you need to do some other stuff, So much freer when we're not focused down. And it's not necessary, People live their whole lives this way. It's okay. It's a choice. It's just, if you're not happy with this choice and you want to do something else, you can. And don't worry, you can always come back. You don't lose this. You're just not relegated to only this. You have choices. And you're aware from in here that you have choices. And that's really empowering. These things are so challenging to explain. Okay. Woo. Blessings. And may you enjoy and thrive with whatever you're doing. Thanks.